Back here in Tempe, it's Sun Devil Extra, presented by Spring Hill Suites, Phoenix, Scottsdale. Braden Bell alongside one of the fan favorites of the Sun Devil football team from this past year, and really the past several years, Trenton Bourguet, joining us on the program now. Trenton, first off, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive in and talk about the news that just popped off. To start this week, of course, the final ranking in the AP poll, number 7 in the country, is the final ranking. We just heard Graham talk about it in the last segment, but highest since 96, 97, before you were even born, right?
Yeah.
So how do you take that in, knowing just, seeing the recognition of the final ranking and kind of having a number to show the historic season you guys just had?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a season to remember. Very exciting to know how we were, preseason ranked and nobody was really, looking at us. But I thought it was just one year you're never going to forget, and hopefully we can build on that in the future.
So let's kind of dive in. I wanted to talk more about your story because, like we said, and I wasn't just saying this because you're sitting next to me, you are a fan favorite, and it's because you stayed loyal to ASU and also maybe back to your roots being from Tucson.
Yeah.
So you're from Tucson, you decide to walk on to ASU. What kind of led to that process, getting you to Tempe? Take us back to when you were a senior in high school and getting to be a Sun Devil.
Yeah, obviously being from Tucson, I grew up, a Wildcats fan.
Yeah.
Both my parents came here to Arizona State. And, growing up, obviously I knew they went to Arizona State, but we didn't really talk about it much. But, it was definitely, during my junior and senior year, I was expecting, get some offers here and there. I had some smaller D2 schools, some JUCOs every now and then would reach out to me. So for me, I just wanted an opportunity to play somewhere. Obviously the school down south didn't give me an opportunity, and my younger brother at the time took a recruiting visit up here to ASU, and for some reason it just clicked in my mind. I was like, we have never really thought about, coming up I-10 and going to Arizona State. So I took a visit up here, probably a month before graduation, my senior year, and had a great meeting with coach at the time, and they, offered me a position, and they knew I wanted to coach, and they kind of knew my background with the 7-on-7 and just coaching in the off season and stuff. So, once they gave me an opportunity, they told me if I did a good job on scout team, I could travel to games and dress up, which that's kind of like unheard of for walk-ons. So,
right.
Took that advantage, and starting out that season, as the 5th string, as doing the scout team, and going to the bowl game against Florida State, I was the backup, behind Jaden Daniels, who ended up having a great career. He's doing great things now, but it's just crazy. But like I said, just trusting God's plan each and every day and trying to be the best teammate I could be.
So I want to get into your story when you arrived on campus in a moment, but we got to touch on, so your parents were both alumni here.
Both alumni here, yes.
Did you get the sense they were excited when you said you were also going to be?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. My grandpa also came here, back in the day. So, it's, 3 generations of Sun Devils in the family that, down in Tucson you don't really talk a lot about now. But I mean, it's awesome to see all the maroon and gold, being worn down there by all my friends and family. And, there's Tucson Sun Devils for sure that are, coming out of their houses and cheering for us. And it's just cool to see, people in the community and just all across the state and across the nation now.
Yeah.
When we were out there in, Atlanta, that Peach Bowl, it was a lot of Sun Devils fans, out there. So it was just cool that they have something to, be proud about, and not only just for football, but our other athletic teams,
right.
under Mr. Rossini has done a great job so far.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the maroon and gold that was in Tucson when you guys played there in football. I don't know if I've ever seen so much maroon and gold over the years than what we saw this past fall. Okay, so let's go back now. You're a walk-on. You just arrived at ASU. You mentioned you're the 5th string quarterback.
Yeah.
That can't be easy to come into a spot and know you're that far down the line. What was your mindset like day in and day out, trying to not only stay fresh, keep your reps and remain serious in that manner, but also realize that you have a long way to go to work your way up the depth chart?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, you're looking in the mirror and you got to be realistic with yourself. For me, it was, my long end goal was, I wanted to be a coach. And I thought, being at Arizona State at a university like this with the connections and the people that have been here, it's such an historic program. Whether it's I played 10 snaps or I played 10 games or whatever, I was going to be happy. And just for me to get the opportunity to play at a Division I school was, that was more than enough. And, sitting in the office with the OC and the head coach at the time, and they told me they don't ever want to hear me cry about not playing or not getting reps of practice, and if I need time to think about it. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm coming here. So, driving back home and just, getting excited and, telling family and friends about the move up to Tempe. And, it was definitely, out of the blue, but I definitely thought I made the right choice. And, you really got to look into the mirror, like I said, and, what are your goals? Obviously everybody, being back in Tucson, I was kind of a big fish. I was always in the news and making plays and winning games and being the guy at school. school, but moving up here, you're a small fish in a big pond, and I thought I was surrounded by great coaches and some great teammates at the time, and we all pushed each other to be great. And those are still conversations I have with those guys every now and then. But it's just crazy to see how all of us has made our own journey, and I'm glad I stuck on this one.
So you did stick on this one, and the old saying, you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's right.
Well, that came true in a Saturday afternoon in Tempe when Washington was here.
Yes.
Injury happened, unfortunately. You're thrust into the game. You start dropping dimes. You win the ball game. It was a great upset win over a really good Washington team at the time. In fact, it kept them out of the Rose Bowl after all was said and done for the rest of that year. But it was a win for Coach Iguano, who was the interim at the time. I mean, take us through that day. When you think back to that day, you're put on the field and you make the plays necessary to win that game. How much of a dream was that?
Yeah, I mean, I can still remember, vividly, pregame was like a little bit cloudy, and for some reason, I mean, some people, you get a feeling, and I just, I thought, I just had a thought that game, not wishing anything happened to Emory or whatever, but I just, I'm always locked in, I'm always, ready for the game plan. I'm locked in at practice with whatever reps I got. But yeah, Emory had the little scramble and went down, and he was kind of a jokester, so I thought he was just kind of messing around, and he wasn't messing around. And I think it was somewhat even an easier game to just get into without preparing the whole week, like, hey, this is your first start or whatever. Like, you have no time to think. I grabbed my helmet on. First play was a handoff to Xavion. He scored, so not a better first play to start off the game with. But yeah, just went out there and just I'm glad that the coaches trusted me, my teammates trusted me, and I trusted them as well. So just trying to do my job, and as a quarterback, it's your job to be prepared always. And I thought that definitely was a great day that I'll always remember, and hopefully Sun Devils fans remember forever.
I'm curious to get your mentality as a quarterback. You mentioned the difference between preparing the whole week knowing you're the starter. That was the situation the next week when you beat Colorado on the road. Jalen Conyers had a great game in that one. What is the mentality change as a quarterback? As you're thrust in after an injury and you come into the game maybe not expecting to, rather than you have the whole week to prepare, your QB1. What's that like?
Yeah, obviously not thinking about it, it's definitely easy, when you're the guy, you're feeling good, you know what you're looking for exactly, but when you're the backup, it can kind of be like, nothing's going to happen. So obviously, I always prepare like I was a starter, whether I was the starter, the second string, the third string, walk on, whatever, I was always going to, prepare as if I was the guy, just like I was my whole life in high school and on up. And obviously after the Washington game, I felt really, really good, feeling really, really good and happy and excited. And, that next week we go to Stanford, I think I'm going to be the guy, and I get told I'm not starting.
Right.
So learning from that, and then obviously, that game didn't go the way we wanted to, and then getting told the next week, okay, you're starting against Colorado, I think, on the Thursday. So just living with the highs and lows, you never know what's going to be thrown at you. And like I said, I think football is a great metaphor for life. There's going to be ups and downs, and it's how you respond to those adverse situations. And I think, I've tried to do a best job of just trying to be the best person I can be each and every day and live that way.
I think that's music to the ears of so many Sun Devil fans, hearing your story, the ups and downs, but also staying true to ASU throughout. And I think, nowadays that's something you don't see a whole lot of, but you decided to stay here through the ups, through the downs, through coaching changes, all those different things. Why was that?
Yeah, for me, my dad, always used to tell me, it's not where you go, but it's what you do when you're there. In high school, I went to a smaller high school that, both my dad went to, my grandpa, a lot of family members went to, and, there's other high schools that I could have gone to, I could have transferred out of, which, may have been better for my recruiting process or getting more eyes on me in different states. But, at the time, it was not only representing, my last name, but, the school and the town that I'm from. So for me, being at Arizona State, even though it may have not been the best place for me, later in my career, early on, for playing purposes, I thought, the relationships I made here, the value was activated, just the key relationships and friendships I've made, they definitely go a lot longer than the 6 years I was here on the football team.
You also got to play with your brother
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
And you got to complete a pass to Coben at U of A.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool full circle moment, obviously, with the Tucson connections. Playing with your brother. I mean, you think of that moment. I know it was just a simple screen, I think it was, to Coben, but what did that mean for your family?
Yeah, obviously I had a lot of family and friends there, probably, over 50, 60 people there, being back in our hometown. And like I said, being from Tucson, that's the home stadium that we grew up going to games, for, 15 years plus, and, rooting on for the, rooting against, the visiting team. And now that the fact that we're running out of that tunnel and, to see our old seats that we used to sit at, I mean, I knew he was in the game with me. I tell people all the time, I knew that he was in the game. The first play was whatever, and the second play they call him the play, and I look over to the left. I'm like, oh, this is Coben. Like, all right, like I'm always excited for whoever, but this is my brother. This is like the first time I can really, get the ball to him, and I don't get nervous very often, but I definitely was like, all right, just pitch and catch. We've done this, over 100 times, our whole lives. So to see him catch it and get the first down, and then obviously the next play to Derek to have a touchdown to cap it off, it was definitely special. That's the first stadium I got my first collegiate action in, and to end it with the completion for a touchdown, it was, you couldn't go out a better way.
Yeah, people forget you ran on that 77 game. Right?
Yeah.
People do forget that. We do not here.
That's right. That's right.
Do you wink at Coben after that last little, or on that completion?
I just, I didn't want to do anything.
Okay.
I know he got up, got the first down. I was all right, next play, trying to make sure I get the guys huddled up and everything. And knew it was another pass play after that. And, it was the RPO, so handoff or throw it. And, Derek's been doing a great job all year and in his whole career here at ASU. And I was like, you know what, give the guy the ball in space and see what he does. And, he definitely made me look good on that one.
Yeah, you can never. You talked about your first play against Washington, handing it off to validate for a touchdown. You can't get a better first collegiate touchdown or touch than Derek Eusebio at Arizona.
That's
like
right.
A 65-yard touchdown. I wanted to ask you about this coaching staff. You said the buzzword "activate the valley," and I know you want to be a coach as well, and we're going to touch on that in a moment. But this coaching staff, the way they've come in and really, had this rise in this great year that you guys just had in just their second year. What has made this culture, this coaching staff so special?
Yeah, I think it starts, from the top down. Coach Dilly does a great job of, bringing energy each and every day, whether it's off season, during the season, after a win, after a loss. It's about being the best you can be every single day at whatever you do. And I think he's definitely preached that, and the guys we have on the team definitely live by that. And, I think this team has just been so close, even though a lot of guys were new last year. I just think that we've done a great job, and a big, part of that is, Coach Joe, our strength staff. He's, I call him the GOAT, not only just because he's our coach, but just who he is as a person, not only as a coach, and, pushing us to limits each and every day, in the off season, and, making those summer workouts tough. So, when you're in the fourth quarter against BYU in a sold out stadium, it's nothing we haven't seen before, and we're ready for that moment.
Okay, so coaching, let's round back to that, and that's what you want to pursue next. Obviously, that is something that is not an easy profession, but you've been around, this locker room and this program for so many years. You've been calling plays in practice, the 7-on-7 stuff as well, like you mentioned. What was kind of the driving force behind wanting you to start being a coach after you play?
Yeah, I think I've always known it, since I was super young. There's stories of me, in kindergarten, you had an art book, and, the teacher didn't know what I was drawing and gave it to my dad. I was like, I didn't know, your son likes Star Wars. And my dad's like, he's never seen Star Wars in his life. And he looks at it, and it's X's and O's. I'm drawing concepts, at 5, 6 years old, and, just been around the game my whole life. And I've always loved to play, but, I've been coaching pretty much, since I was 6 or 7, calling my own plays for my team, coaching my younger brothers and cousins and my sister's flag football team. So I've seen a lot of people do it, and I just, I have a love for it, a knack for it. Some people love music and video games or whatever, but for me, it's always been football, and just not only just coaching the X's and O's, but the relationships and, helping people, grow into, great young women and young men. So I just think this game has been, something that's, definitely changed my life, and I'd love to use it to change other people's lives.
Who are some of those mentors or maybe coaches that you look up to that, have allowed you to keep thinking this is what you want to do as well? Yeah,
I would definitely say my dad. He's definitely been pretty much my coach my whole life. I have a high school coach, Coach Litton. He's now up here, in the Phoenix, area. He's somebody, I talk to, weekly and monthly and everything. And there's just so many coaches, Coach Arroyo definitely, and Trey Anderson's another guy that's been with me for a long time. So just, those connections that it goes past, the football, on the field, but just people I can, always know I can talk to, and hopefully I'm like that to some of my players in the future.
Where does Coach Dilly rank on that list?
He's still, he's still serving a coach. Hopefully, I'm hoping to, obviously work with him in the future. But, to see somebody like him that's so young and so innovative, and, this is home for him. It's not like he's from out of state or from a different place. Arizona's home for him, being from Chaparral and Scottsdale. And, I've definitely, been following his career the last couple of years. And when I first heard, he was kind of, a prospect to be the next head coach here. I was kind of the guy, on that 22 team. After the bus, right after our last loss that year, and it was kind of like, hey, if we get this guy, if we can stay together, it's not going to be easy, but, he's going to have a vision, and wherever he's gone, he's been successful, and it's super cool to just see somebody that, he bleeds, the maroon and gold for sure. He doesn't just talk about, being at ASU, but he truly believes that this is a hidden gem and a palace waiting to be born, and I definitely think he's taking us to the next level.
One of the things we love to do on this show is kind of take fans behind the closed doors to kind of see what it's like to be in the locker room, and I know the video production staff for Settle Football did a great job this year. You think of Twist the Knife in Tucson. You think of Scat's fiery speech at halftime against BYU. Xavier Alford had a great speech almost every single week. Yeah. Was there another moment, either after a win or at halftime or before a game, that maybe fans didn't get to see that really pops off in the memory bank that you think of?
For me, it was really, every game. I think we all kind of, no matter whether we were down in a game, up being in a game, we kind of just, took it one play at a time. And I thought, that definitely, paid off in the, at the end of the year, this season. Obviously we came up against, Wyoming, and, we were up the whole game and learning from that. And then Mississippi State having a big lead and having to close it out, and they almost came back. And Kansas, we had to have a game-winning touchdown under 2 minutes. I think we were just put in so many adverse situations that not only happened during the season, but we did that in fall camp. We did that, in summer competitions. We did that in spring ball. And I think that's one thing that we've really taken advantage of is, creating competition in everything we do, whether it's on the football field or in the weight room, or it's us going bowling or playing basketball, at the rec center. I think it's something that, it definitely is infectious. And when you have a group of guys that are all competitive as can be, and you put them on a field together, and we're not, going against each other, like we do at practice, but, putting another team across from us. But yeah, I think Xavion does a great job, speaking, and he's a leader. And, Scat definitely grew into that role, last year he's kind of a little bit more passive, but this year, and, when he talks, people are going to listen. He's out there, throwing his body around. But I don't know if there's one specific speech, but I mean, one speech that I kind of remember just, Texas, we're down 17-3 at halftime or whatever. And, people were kind of quiet, but, we knew that no matter what, we were going to fight to the very end. And that's one thing that I can say with this team. It didn't matter what the game was, the situation, whether we're down, up, we're going to play to the last whistle. And I think we definitely lived by that. And hopefully the teams moving forward can always look back at this team and just know, like, no matter what the situation was, they're going to give it their all.
Yeah, lifers, for
That's
sure.
right.
And what
That's
you guys
right.
accomplished will not soon be forgotten. I think there's a good chance you'll have a trophy case of your own
Yeah.
in the Sports Hall of Fame as well. Last one for you, Trenton. Let's say you fast forward 5 years from now. You're a coach somewhere.
Yeah.
But you come back to Mountain America Stadium. Who knows? Maybe you'll be on the staff. Whatever.
Yeah.
You come back in and you think about your career from the 70-7 first game you played off to the Peach Bowl and everything in between. What rush of memories do you think you'll be met with?
Shoot. I mean, there's going to be, the 70-7 for sure, beating Washington, and that was pretty much the last loss until they lost to, Michigan the next season. The BYU game for sure. I mean, the Big 12 champion. I mean, this season has been such a high emotion roller coaster just of how we were doing, and obviously starting off really well, and had a couple hiccups here and there in the middle of the season, but to see how we finished the season, it was definitely one that I'll remember. And as much as the games I'll remember, it's going to Camp T. And, being in the cabin with my teammates and the bus rides and the plane rides and just the little things that kind of people don't understand, as much as it is about the games and everything, there's little, workouts that we do here and there and competitions that, those are the big memories that you're always going to remember. You're not always going to remember the exact score or whatever of, the Big 12 championship. I know we won by a lot. I couldn't tell you the exact score, but I just know that whole week of preparation and just traveling, and those are the key memories I'm always going to remember.
And I think people are going to remember you for a long time as well, just based on what you did for this program, the leader that you are, and the bright future you have ahead of you as well. Trenton Bourguet joining us on the program. Thanks a lot for stopping by.
Appreciate it.
Bright things ahead for you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That'll do it here for Sun Devil Extra this week. Big thanks to Graham Rossini, this guy right here, Trenton Bourguet, and we'll talk to you next week here from Tempe.